Kang Dae-ho pushed through the crowded halls of the Galactic Council building. The tall crystal walls around him glowed with soft blue light. He carried a heavy datapad in his four-armed grip. His crystal body clicked softly as he walked, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. The council meeting was loud today. The Vorthak trade ministers argued with the Krellin war chiefs about shipping routes through the outer systems. Their voices echoed off the crystal walls. The Aquari delegates floated in their water tanks, making clicking sounds that meant they wanted everyone to calm down. Dae-ho was just a simple archivist. He spent his days in the deep archives, reading old files and organizing data. Most people forgot he existed. That was fine with him. He liked the quiet of the archives better than the noise of politics. But today was different. He had found something strange in the oldest files. Something that made his crystal heart beat faster. The humans, he whispered to himself as he entered the archive chamber. The word felt strange on his voice crystals. 3 months ago he had been cleaning old data storage units. Most of them held boring trade records and diplomatic messages from hundreds of years ago. But one unit was different. It was older than the others, and it was locked with codes nobody remembered. It took Dae-ho weeks to break the codes. When he finally opened the files, he found stories. Strange stories about a fourth species that nobody talked about anymore. The files called them humans. They were described as bipedal mammals with soft skin and strange emotions. The stories said they came from a yellow star in a distant part of the galaxy. They had built ships and traveled between worlds just like the other species. But the stories were impossible to believe. The humans were supposed to be weak. They had no natural armor like the Krellins. They could not live in water like the Aquari. They were not made of strong crystal like the Vorthak. Yet the stories said they had conquered their entire star system in just a few hundred years. The files described humans as beings of contradiction. They were said to be gentle and kind, creating art and music and poetry, but they were also described as the most dangerous warriors the galaxy had ever seen. When humans fought, the stories said, they fought with a fury that terrified even the battle-loving Krellins. Dae-ho read about human cities that floated in space, bigger than most moons. He read about human ships that could travel between stars faster than anything the current species could build. He read about human weapons that could crack planets. But most strange of all, the stories said the humans had simply vanished. One day they were there, trading and talking with other species. The next day they were gone. Their star system was empty. Their ships had disappeared. It was as if they had never existed at all. The other archivists laughed when Dae-ho told them about the files. Old myths, they said. Stories made up to explain things people did not understand back then. But Dae-ho kept reading. And the more he read, the more he found things that did not feel like myths. There were star charts in the files, real coordinates that pointed to actual places in space. There were technical specifications for human technology that were too detailed to be made up. There were diplomatic records of meetings between humans and the ancient versions of the current species. Most important of all, there was a map. A map that showed a section of space marked in red with words that made Dae-ho's crystal body turn cold. Quarantine zone, do not enter, authorization level unknown. That zone still existed on current star charts. It was a large area of space that included dozens of star systems. But on modern maps, it was just marked as empty space with no explanation of why ships were not supposed to go there. Dae-ho decided he needed help. He could not investigate this alone. He thought of Yoon Hana first. She was a Krellin military analyst who worked for the Council's Defense Department. Her insect-like body was covered in dark green armor, and her 6 legs clicked when she walked. She had sharp mandibles and compound eyes that could see things others missed. Hana was known for being smart and careful. She did not believe stories easily. If Dae-ho could convince her that the human files were real, then maybe others would listen too. He found her in the military wing of the council building. She was studying patrol reports from the outer rim systems. Hana, Dae-ho said, his voice crystals ringing softly, I need to show you something strange. Hana looked up from her work. Her compound eyes focused on him. What kind of strange archive keeper? Dae-ho placed his datapad on her desk. I found files about a species called humans. Very old files. Hana's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Humans? Those are old myths, Dae-ho. Stories parents tell children about monster warriors from the dark between stars. But what if they are not myths? Dae-ho asked. What if they were real? Hana picked up the datapad and scrolled through the files. Her expression changed as she read. The clicking of her mandibles slowed and then stopped. "These coordinates," she said finally. "They point to the Forbidden Zone." "Yes," Deho said. "And I think we need to ask someone why that zone is forbidden." That someone was Park Woo-jin. He was an Aquari explorer who had spent most of his life traveling to distant star systems. His blue-green skin was smooth and wet, and he breathed through gills on his neck. He moved in a wheeled water tank that let him travel on dry land. Woo-jin was old, even for an Aquari. He had seen more of the galaxy than almost anyone alive. If anyone would know about the Forbidden Zone, it would be him. They found him in the Explorer's Lounge, sharing stories with younger Aquari about distant worlds. His tank was surrounded by star charts and navigation equipment. "Woo-jin," Hana said, "we need to ask you about the quarantine zone in Sector 7. The old Aquari's gill slits fluttered. His large eyes grew wider. "Why do you ask about that place?" Deho showed him the human files. Woo-jin read them in silence. His webbed fingers traced the star charts on the datapad. "My grandfather told me stories," Woo-jin said finally. Stories his grandfather told him. "About the empty place where no one goes." "What kind of stories?" Deho asked. Woo-jin's tank made a soft humming sound as it adjusted the water temperature. He said that long ago, before the three species formed the council, there was a fourth species. They lived in that region of space. But something happened to them. Something that made the other species agree to never go there again. "What happened?" Hana asked. "No one remembers," Woo-jin said. "The knowledge was lost. But the warning remained. Stay away from the empty place. Some things are better left alone." Deho felt his crystal body grow warm with excitement. But what if they are not gone? What if they are still there, just hidden? Woo-jin looked at the star charts again. "These coordinates are very precise. If you wanted to send a message to that region of space, these would tell you exactly where to aim it." Hana's mandibles began clicking rapidly. "Are you suggesting we try to contact them?" "I am suggesting we learn more," Deho said. "We have the coordinates. We have the communication frequencies listed in these files. What if we just listened?" The three of them looked at each other. They were very different beings from three different species, but they all felt the same thing: curiosity about the greatest mystery in the galaxy. "If we do this," Woo-jin said slowly, "we should be careful." "There might be good reasons why that space is forbidden," Hana agreed. "We start small. We point a deep space listening array at those coordinates and see if there are any signals coming from that region." Deho nodded. "And if we find something? Then we decide what to do next," Hana said. They had no way of knowing that their simple plan to listen for signals would wake up something that had been sleeping for 500 years. They had no way of knowing that in the distant star system called Sol, ancient monitoring stations were already detecting their interest. And they had no way of knowing that the humans had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. The alarm that woke Lee Tae-min had not sounded for 500 years. He opened his eyes in the cryo chamber and felt the cold leaving his body. Ice crystals fell from his skin as the warming systems brought him back to life. His muscles were stiff and his mind was foggy, but he remembered why he was here. He was the commander of the Terra Defense Network. He was one of the Watchers, and something had triggered the ancient warning systems. Tae-min sat up slowly and looked around the chamber. Hundreds of other cryopods were opening around him. Men and women who had been sleeping for decades were waking up. Their faces were confused and worried. "Status report," Tae-min said. His voice was rough from the long sleep. A woman with short black hair approached him. She moved carefully, still adjusting to being awake. "Commander, I am Kim Sora. I have been monitoring galactic communications while you slept." Sora helped Tae-min out of his pod. She handed him a warm drink and a datapad. 3 members of the Galactic Council have been investigating the old archives. They found files about humans. They are asking questions about the quarantine zone. Tae-min read the information on the pad. After 500 years of silence, someone was finally looking for them. "How much do they know?" "Not much yet," Sora said. "They think we might be myths. But they have our old coordinates. And yesterday, they pointed a listening array at our system." Tae-min felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cryo chamber. "They are trying to contact us." "Yes, sir." The automated systems detected their scanning frequencies. That is what triggered the wake-up sequence. Around them, more people were getting out of their pods. Taman recognized some faces. These were the Guardians, the people who had volunteered to watch over humanity's greatest secret. 500 years ago, humans had made first contact with an alien species. It had gone very badly. The aliens had been aggressive. They had attacked human colonies and killed thousands of people. The humans had fought back with everything they had. The war lasted only 3 days. When it was over, the alien species was extinct. Every one of their worlds was empty. Their entire civilization was gone. The humans had not meant to destroy them completely. They had just wanted to protect themselves. But once the fighting started, they could not stop. They were too good at war, too efficient at killing. The psychological impact on humanity was enormous. They realized they were monsters. They had wiped out an entire species in less than a week. What would happen when they met other aliens? Would they destroy them too? So humanity made a choice. They would leave the galaxy alone. They would hide in their own star system and never make contact with other species again. It was the only way to keep everyone safe. But they also knew they could not just disappear completely. Other species might find Earth someday, or worse, something dangerous might threaten the galaxy. So they created the Watchers. A small group of humans would stay awake in shifts. They would monitor galactic communications and watch for threats. If something happened that required human intervention, they would wake up the defense fleets. Most humans went into deep cryosleep or moved to hidden colonies in other dimensions. The Earth system was emptied and disguised to look abandoned. Warning beacons were placed around the quarantine zone to keep other species away. For 500 years it had worked. The 3 major species had developed their own civilization. They lived in relative peace. They had never found any trace of humanity. Until now. Taman walked through the corridors of the monitoring station. It was built inside a large asteroid in the outer part of the Sol system. From the outside, it looked like just another piece of space rock. Inside, it contained everything needed to watch over the galaxy. He found Choi Minho in the command center. Minho was the head of the Strategic Council. He was a thin man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He had been awake for the past 50 years, taking his turn as a watcher. "Commander," Minho said, "I have been tracking the situation. The 3 aliens who found our files are named Kang Dae-ho, Yoon Hana, and Park Woo-jin. They seem to be genuinely curious, not aggressive." Timon looked at the display showing information about the 3 aliens. "What do we know about their species?" "The Vorthak are crystal-based beings. They are mostly peaceful and interested in art and trade. The Krellans are insect-like warriors, but they follow rules of honor. The Aquari are aquatic explorers who prefer diplomacy to fighting. And they have been living together peacefully? For the most part, yes. There are political tensions, but no major wars. They formed the Galactic Council to resolve disputes." Taman felt a mix of relief and sadness. Relief that the galaxy had found peace without humans. Sadness that humanity had missed 500 years of possible friendship. "What do you recommend?" he asked Minho. "We maintain the quarantine," Minho said firmly. "These 3 aliens think we are myths. Let them keep thinking that. We have stayed hidden for 500 years. We can stay hidden for 500 more. Before Taman could respond, another voice spoke from behind them. "I disagree." They turned to see Jin Ye-jin approaching. She was the fleet admiral, in charge of all human military forces. She was a tall woman with scars on her hands from the old war. Her eyes were hard but not cruel. "Admiral," Taman said, "you think we should reveal ourselves?" "I think we should consider it," Ye-jin said. "These aliens are not like the first species we met. They are curious, not hostile. Maybe it is time to try again." Minho shook his head. "Too dangerous. What if they react with fear? What if our very existence starts a war between their species? We could destroy the peace they have built." Ye-jin pointed at the communication displays. "Look at their messages to each other. They are working together to solve this mystery. A Vorthak, a Krellan, and an Aquari, 3 different species cooperating. That never happened 500 years ago." Taman studied the data. She was right. The old galaxy had been full of species that fought each other constantly. These 3 were different. They had learned to live together. "There is something else," Sora said. She brought up new displays. "Long-range sensors have detected movement in the outer rim systems. Something is coming toward the core worlds." The displays showed fuzzy images of large, organic-looking ships. They were moving slowly but steadily toward the inhabited systems of the galaxy. "What are they?" Taman asked. Unknown, Sora said. But they are not from any of the 3 council species, and they are not responding to communication attempts. Yejin studied the sensor data. How long until they reach the council systems? At their current speed, about 6 months. The room fell silent. Taman looked at the 3 options in front of him. Stay hidden and let the council face this new threat alone, reveal humanity and risk causing chaos, or wait and see what happened. Commander, Sora said quietly, there is one more thing. I have been analyzing the communication patterns of these unknown ships. They are not trying to talk. They are scanning the inhabited worlds like they are shopping. Shopping for what? Minho asked. Resources. Biomass. The scan patterns match what we would use if we were looking for things to harvest. Taman felt his blood turn cold. The unknown ships were not exploring. They were hunting. How many ships? He asked. We have detected at least 50 so far, but there are probably more that we cannot see yet. Yejin crossed her arms. The council species have never fought anything like this. Their weapons are designed for ship-to-ship combat between civilized opponents. If these unknown aliens are what I think they are, she did not need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the room knew what she meant. The council species were about to face an enemy that would not follow rules or accept surrender. An enemy that would not stop until everything was consumed. Taimin looked around the room at the faces of his fellow watchers. They had spent 500 years protecting the galaxy by staying away from it. Now they might have to protect it by revealing themselves. How long would it take to wake up the defense fleets? He asked Yejin. Full mobilization? 3 months. But we could have scout forces ready in 3 weeks. And how long to contact the council? Sora checked her displays. I could send a message right now. It would reach them in about 6 hours. Taman closed his eyes and thought about the choice he had to make. 500 years of hiding. 500 years of protecting the galaxy by staying away from it. But now staying away might mean letting millions of innocent beings die. Sir? Minho asked. What are your orders? Taman opened his eyes and looked at the displays showing the approaching threat. Then he looked at the communications data from the 3 aliens who were trying to solve the mystery of humanity. Wake up the fleets, he said. All of them. Minho's face went pale. Sir, are you sure? And prepare a message for the Galactic Council, Taman continued. It is time they learned that some myths are real. Yejin smiled for the first time in decades. What should the message say? Taman thought for a moment. Then he said the words that would change the galaxy forever. Tell them that the humans are coming home. The first attack came without warning. Nam Hyunwoo was monitoring galactic communications from his hidden post in the asteroid belt when the Krellin border colony of Thex 7 simply stopped transmitting. One moment the colony was sending routine reports about mining operations. The next moment there was only silence. Hyunwoo checked his equipment 3 times. The sensors were working perfectly. The communication arrays were functioning normally. But Thex 7 was gone. This is wrong, he whispered to himself. His hands moved quickly over the control panels, scanning for any trace of the lost colony. The sensors found something, but it made no sense. Where Thex 7 should have been, there was only empty space, not destroyed buildings or scattered debris. Nothing at all. It was as if the entire colony had been erased from existence. Hyunwoo sent an urgent message to the Earth monitoring station. Within an hour, every human listening post in the galaxy was focused on the Krellin border region. What they found terrified them. The attackers moved through space like living things. Their ships were not made of metal or crystal like normal spacecraft. They were organic, with smooth surfaces that rippled and pulsed. They looked more like giant sea creatures swimming through the void than machines built by intelligent beings. The alien ships approached inhabited worlds slowly and carefully. They scanned each planet with strange energy beams. Then they descended to the surface and began to feed. Hyunwoo watched in horror as an entire Krellin mining station was consumed. The organic ships landed on the surface and extended long tentacles into the ground. The tentacles drained everything they touched: plants, animals, minerals, even the atmosphere itself. Within hours, the world was a lifeless gray ball of rock. But the worst part was what happened to the people. The attacking aliens did not kill the colonists quickly. They kept them alive and studied them. They learned from them. By the time the organic ships left a world, they had absorbed all the knowledge and memories of everyone who lived there. On the Vorthak homeworld, Kang Daeho was in the archives when the first reports arrived. His crystal body trembled as he read the military dispatches. The unknown aliens were not just destroying colonies. They were learning from each attack. They adapt, he said to his assistant. Each time our forces try to fight them, they change their tactics. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Representatives from all three species gathered in the Great Hall to discuss the threat. The crystal walls dimmed as holographic displays showed the advancing enemy. Yoon Hana stood before the assembly and gave her report. Her insect face was grim behind her ceremonial mask. The enemy has consumed 12 colonies in the past week. Our combined fleets have engaged them 4 times. We have not been able to stop a single ship. A Vorthak trade minister raised one of his forearms. What do we know about their technology? They do not use technology as we understand it, Hana replied. Their ships are alive. They grow and evolve. Our energy weapons barely scratch their hulls. Our missiles are absorbed and digested. An Aquari admiral spoke from his water tank. What about their numbers? Unknown, Hana said. We have identified at least 200 ships so far, but long-range sensors suggest there may be thousands more behind them. The assembly hall fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The 3 species had lived in peace for centuries. They had no experience fighting an enemy like this. Park Woo-jin was with the defense fleet when they made their first major stand at the Helix Nebula. His exploration ship had been converted into a mobile command center. From his water tank on the bridge, he watched as the combined forces of the 3 species prepared for battle. It was an impressive sight. Krellin warships with their angular armor and massive guns, Vorthak crystal vessels that could bend light around themselves, Aquari submarines adapted for space combat. 200 ships in total representing the best military technology the Council had to offer. The enemy came out of hyperspace like a pack of hunting animals. Their organic ships moved in perfect coordination, flowing around the Council fleet like water around stones. They made no attempt to communicate. They simply attacked. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, half the Council fleet was gone. Not destroyed in explosions or torn apart by weapons, simply gone, absorbed into the hull of the enemy ships. Woo-jin survived because his ship was in the rear of the formation. He watched helplessly as his friends and colleagues were consumed by the hungry aliens. The enemy ships grew larger with each vessel they absorbed, incorporating the destroyed ships into their own mass. Fall back, the fleet commander ordered. All ships retreat to the inner systems, but even in retreat the enemy pursued them. The organic ships had learned from the battle. They now had shields like the Vorthak vessels. They had weapons like the Krellin warships. They moved through water space like the Aquari submarines. They had become stronger by destroying their enemies. Back on Earth, the human leaders watched the battle reports with growing alarm. Song Jae-hyun, the president of the Terran Federation, called an emergency meeting of the Strategic Council. The situation is worse than we thought, he said to the assembled leaders. These aliens are not just invaders. They are a plague. Oh Da-eun, the head of military intelligence, presented her analysis. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a quiet voice. But when she spoke, everyone listened. The enemy calls themselves the Devourers, she said. At least that is what the surviving Council forces are calling them. They consume everything they encounter. Matter, energy, information, even the quantum patterns that make up living consciousness. How is that possible? Asked Song Jae-hyun. They are a hive mind, Dae-yoon explained. Every ship, every creature, every piece of their technology is connected to a central intelligence. When they absorb something, they do not just take its physical form. They take its knowledge, its memories, its very identity. Lee Taemin studied the tactical displays. What are their weaknesses? That is the problem, Da-eun said. They do not seem to have any. Every time the Council forces find a way to hurt them, they adapt. They learn. They become immune to whatever worked before. What about their origin? Asked Jin Ye-jin. Where do they come from? Unknown. They appeared in the outer rim systems about a year ago. They may have come from another galaxy entirely. The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. The Devourers were not just a threat to the 3 Council species. They were a threat to all life in the galaxy. Sir, said a young officer, we are receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. They are requesting immediate assistance from any available forces in the region. Song Jae-hyun looked around the room. They still do not know we exist. Should we tell them? Asked Taemin. Before anyone could answer, new alarms began sounding. Dayan quickly checked her displays. The Devourers have broken through the Council's defensive line. They are moving toward the core systems. How long until they reach the inhabited worlds? Ye Jin asked. At their current speed, 2 weeks. The leaders looked at each other. For 500 years, humanity had hidden from the galaxy to protect other species from human violence. Now other species were about to be destroyed because humans were not there to protect them. The Council species are thinking like civilized beings, Daun said quietly. They are trying to negotiate to find diplomatic solutions to minimize casualties. The Devourers do not have those limitations. Neither do we, Taemin said. Song Jae-hyun made the decision that would end humanity's isolation. Send the message to the Council. Tell them who we are and that we are coming to help. What about the consequences? Asked Daun. What if they fear us? What if revealing ourselves causes more problems? Then we will deal with those problems later, Song Jae-hyun said. Right now the only thing that matters is stopping the Devourers. Ye-jin was already moving toward the door. I need to get to the Fleet Command Center. How many ships can we mobilize? All of them, Song Jae-hyun said. Wake up every fleet, every station, every weapon platform we have hidden in the outer systems. This is not a time for half measures, sir, Taemin said. The humans have not fought a war in 500 years. Are we still capable of this? Song Jae-hyun looked at the tactical displays showing the advancing Devourer fleet. Then he looked at the communication from the Council, desperately asking for help from anyone who could provide it. We are about to find out, he said. Across human space, ancient systems began powering up for the first time in centuries. Hidden shipyards came online. Weapon platforms emerged from their camouflaged positions. Cryopods containing millions of sleeping soldiers began their wake-up cycles. The humans had spent 500 years in hiding, terrified of their own capacity for violence. Now that violence would be turned against an enemy that understood nothing but hunger, the galaxy was about to remember why humanity had feared itself enough to disappear. And the Devourers were about to learn that some prey was more dangerous than predators. The first human ship to leave the quarantine zone in 500 years was a small scout vessel called the Pathfinder. Shin Hae-young sat in the pilot seat, her hands steady on the controls despite the magnitude of what she was doing. This is Scout Ship Pathfinder, she transmitted on all galactic frequencies. This is the Terran Federation. We have received your distress calls. We are here to help. The response came from Park Woo-jin, whose exploration vessel was the closest to the quarantine zone boundary. His voice shook with disbelief as he spoke. Unknown vessel, please repeat your identification. Did you say Terran Federation? Confirmed, Hae-young replied. I am Commander Shin Hae-young of the Terran Federation Navy. We are the species you have been researching. We are the humans. Woo-jin's exploration ship stopped moving. For a full minute, there was only silence on the communication channel. Then his voice came through again, barely a whisper. The myths are real. Behind Hae-young's small scout ship, space began to shimmer and bend. One by one, massive shapes emerged from hyperspace. Ships the size of cities appeared in perfect formation, their hulls dark and smooth. They moved with deadly grace like predators awakening from a long sleep. The human fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. The Council species built their ships for specific purposes. Warships looked like warships. Cargo vessels looked like cargo vessels. Exploration ships looked like exploration ships. Human ships looked like they could do anything. The largest vessel was the Dreadnought Unconquered. It was 10 kilometers long and 2 kilometers wide. Its hull was covered in weapons, sensors, and launch bays. But it also contained entire cities within its structure. Millions of people lived and worked inside the massive ship. Ryu Sung-ho commanded the Unconquered from a bridge that was larger than most Council space stations. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. He had been in cryosleep for 200 years, dreaming of the day humans might return to the galaxy. Open a channel to the Galactic Council fleet, he ordered. The main screen showed the battered remains of the Council's defensive force. Barely 50 ships remained from the original 200. They hung in space like wounded animals, their hulls scarred by Devourer weapons. Council forces, this is Captain Ryu Sung-ho of the Terran vessel Unconquered, he said. We have been monitoring your conflict with the entities you call Devourers. We request permission to assist in the defense of your worlds. The response came from Yoon Hana, who had been promoted to fleet commander after the disaster at Helix Nebula. Her insect voice was filled with exhaustion and desperation. Unconquered, this is Commander Hannah of the Galactic Defense Force. We accept any assistance you can provide. Sung-Ho smiled grimly. Understood, Commander. Please withdraw your forces to a safe distance. We will handle the approaching hostiles. Captain, Hannah said, there are over 300 Devourer ships in that fleet. They have adapted to all of our weapons. They are virtually unstoppable. Commander, Sung-Ho replied, we are humans. Unstoppable is what we do. The Devourer fleet emerged from hyperspace like a living nightmare. Their organic ships pulsed with stolen energy and rippled with absorbed technology. They had grown larger and more dangerous with each world they consumed. They immediately began scanning the human fleet, trying to understand this new threat. The Devourers had learned to fear nothing in their journey across the galaxy. Every species they encountered had fallen within days. But the human ships were different, and Jiwan commanded a strike group of 30 vessels from her flagship Retribution. She was a small woman with quick hands and sharp reflexes. She had trained for this moment her entire life, even though she had spent most of it in cryosleep. All ships, this is Strike Commander Anne, she broadcast to her fleet. Remember your training. These enemies adapt to what they see. Do not give them time to learn. The human attack began with weapons the Devourers had never encountered. Instead of energy beams or explosive missiles, the humans used gravitational lances that twisted space itself, matter conversion bombs that turned enemy hulls into pure energy, quantum disruptors that made molecules forget how to hold together. The Devourer ships tried to adapt, but the humans changed tactics faster than the aliens could learn. When gravitational weapons stopped working, the humans switched to temporal distortion fields. When the Devourers developed defenses against time manipulation, the humans began using weapons that attacked on the quantum level. Kang Min Seo coordinated the attack from the strategy center aboard the Unconquered. He was a brilliant tactician who had studied every form of warfare humanity had ever developed. His job was to ensure the Devourers never had time to understand what was happening to them. Phase 1 complete, he reported to Captain Seung-Ho. Enemy formation is disrupted. Beginning Phase 2. The second wave of human ships was different from the first. Instead of massive dreadnoughts, these were smaller vessels that moved like living things. They flowed through the Devourer formation like Mercury, striking weak points and disappearing before the enemy could respond. Each human ship fought differently. Some used weapons that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Others attacked with swarms of self-replicating nanobots. A few simply rammed into Devourer vessels at significant fractions of the speed of light. The aliens tried desperately to adapt. They absorbed the remains of destroyed human ships and attempted to copy their technology. But human technology was not meant to be copied. It was designed by a species that understood war at a level the Devourers could not comprehend. When the Devourers tried to use captured human weapons, the weapons turned against them. When they attempted to copy human ship designs, the designs contained hidden flaws that caused catastrophic failures. The humans had spent 500 years preparing for this moment, and every system they built contained layers of protection against theft or adaptation. This is impossible, broadcast one of the Devourer hive nodes. It was the first time the aliens had spoken directly to their enemies. You cannot possess technology we cannot understand, Captain Sung-Ho responded personally. You are wrong. We are humans. We have been fighting wars since before we learned to make fire. You have consumed dozens of species, but you have never fought anything like us. The Devourer fleet began to retreat, but the humans did not let them go. This was not a battle for territory or resources. This was an extermination. Human pursuit ships followed the fleeing Devourers across 3 star systems. Every alien vessel was hunted down and destroyed. No prisoners were taken. No mercy was shown. The humans fought with the same terrible efficiency that had terrified them into hiding 500 years ago. When the last Devourer ship was destroyed, the human fleet regrouped near the Galactic Council forces. The contrast was startling. The Council ships were battered and exhausted. The human ships looked like they had not even been in a fight. Yoon Hana's voice came over the communication channel. She sounded stunned. How did you do that? The Devourers adapted to everything we tried. They learned from every attack. They learned from your attacks because you fight like civilized beings, Sung-Ho explained. You follow rules. You try to minimize casualties. You attempt diplomatic solutions. And you do not? Commander, Seung-ho said quietly. We spent 500 years hiding from the galaxy because we discovered something terrible about ourselves. We are very, very good at war, too good. When humans fight, we do not stop until our enemies are completely destroyed. On the Vorthak homeworld, Kang Dae-ho watched the battle reports with amazement and growing fear. The humans had destroyed in one day what the combined council forces could not stop in months of fighting. They are real, he whispered to himself. The humans are real, and they are exactly what the old stories said they were. The human fleet began moving deeper into council space. More ships emerged from the quarantine zone every hour. Massive cargo vessels brought supplies and reinforcements. Mobile shipyards began constructing new vessels using materials gathered from destroyed Devourer ships. But most disturbing of all were the humans themselves. When the council delegations finally met them face to face, they found beings that looked harmless. Humans were smaller than Krellans, softer than Vorthaks, less adapted than Aquari. They seemed fragile and weak. Yet they moved with a confidence that made veteran warriors uncomfortable. They spoke quietly and politely, but their eyes held a coldness that suggested they had seen terrible things and done worse. We are here to help, they said, and everyone believed them, but everyone also understood that the humans were the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. The myths had become real. The legends had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The war changed everything in the galaxy, but it took 3 more months to end completely. Lim Chan-ho led the human deep strike forces to the source of the Devourer threat. His ships moved through the dark space between galaxies, following quantum trails left by the alien hive mind. What he found there made even veteran human soldiers pause in horror. The Devourer home cluster was not a collection of planets. It was a living entity the size of a solar system. Billions of organic ships swarmed around massive breeding spheres that pulsed with stolen life force. Entire consumed civilizations floated in biotanks, their knowledge and memories being processed by the hive mind. We count at least 50,000 ships, Chan-ho reported to the Human Fleet Command, and they are all connected to a central intelligence. If we can destroy the core, the entire hive should collapse. But destroying the core meant fighting through layers of defenses that had consumed dozens of galaxies. The Devourers had been growing for millions of years, absorbing every species they encountered. Their collective knowledge was vast beyond imagination. The final battle required every human ship in the galaxy. Even then, it was not enough. The humans had to call in their secret weapons. Park Si-hyun had spent 3 centuries developing tools of war so terrible that they had never been tested. She was a small woman with sad eyes who understood the mathematics of destruction better than anyone alive. The quantum unraveling devices are ready, she reported to the human leadership. But once we use them, there will be no going back. These weapons do not just destroy matter. They unravel the fundamental forces that hold reality together. Song Jae-hyun, the Terran Federation president, made the hardest decision of his life. Deploy the devices. End this war. The quantum weapons fired from hidden positions throughout the Devourer cluster. They did not explode like normal weapons. Instead, they simply made the enemy stop existing. The organic ships dissolved into component atoms. The massive breeding spheres collapsed into quantum foam. The central intelligence that had controlled billions of minds simply ceased to be. When the last echo of the Devourer hive mind faded from the galactic communication networks, the universe fell silent. Yu Tae-wan commanded the human flagship Prometheus during the final assault. He was an old soldier who had fought in the war that drove humanity into hiding. He understood better than most what they had just done. All Devourer forces have been eliminated, he reported. The threat is ended. But ending the war was only the beginning of the real challenge. The Galactic Council had to come to terms with the existence of a species that could destroy entire civilizations in a matter of days. The humans had saved them, but they had also demonstrated a capacity for violence that terrified everyone who witnessed it. Han So-min was chosen as the first human diplomatic attaché to the council. She was a patient woman with a gentle voice who had spent decades studying the psychology of interspecies relations. Her job was to explain humanity to the galaxy. We understand your fear, she said to the assembled council delegates. We share it. That is why we hid from you for 500 years. Yoon Hana, now promoted to Supreme Commander of the Galactic Defense Force, asked the question everyone was thinking. How do we know you will not turn against us? How do we know we have not simply traded one threat for another? Han So-min considered the question carefully before answering. You do not know. We do not know. The capacity for violence exists in every intelligent species. We have simply learned to be more efficient at it than others. The revelation of humanity's past made the situation even more complex. When the Council learned about the First Contact War and the complete extinction of the aggressive species, some delegates demanded that humans be quarantined again. You destroyed an entire civilization in 3 days, accused a Vorthak trade minister. How can we trust beings capable of such actions? Because, Han So-min replied, we chose to hide rather than conquer. We could have ruled the galaxy 500 years ago. Instead, we removed ourselves from it to keep you safe. The debates continued for months. Some council members wanted to worship humans as saviors. Others wanted to exile them back to the quarantine zone. A few suggested that humans should be destroyed before they became a threat. But the decision was made for them by events beyond anyone's control. Long-range sensors detected new threats emerging from the dark space between galaxies, other hive minds, other consuming species, other enemies that the peaceful council races could never hope to defeat alone. Kim Ye-rim became the human ambassador to the reformed Galactic Assembly. She was a wise woman who had lived through humanity's darkest period and understood the weight of the choices they faced. We propose a new arrangement, she said to the assembled delegates. Humans will not join your civilization. We will not colonize your worlds or interfere in your politics. But we will watch. We will guard the borders of known space. And if something threatens the peace you have built, we will return. The arrangement was formalized in the Treaty of Distant Guardians. Humans established monitoring stations at the rim of the galaxy, but kept their main populations in the Sol system and hidden colonies. They would remain apart from galactic civilization, but would defend it when necessary. The decision was not popular with everyone. Many humans wanted to rejoin the galactic community. Many council species wanted the protection that human technology could provide. But the leaders on both sides understood the wisdom of distance. Late at night in the archives of the Galactic Council, Kang Dae-ho looked at the new files being written about humanity. The myths had become history. The legends had become official records. They kept their promise, he said to his assistant. They stayed away to protect us, and when we needed them, they came back. But the files also contained disturbing details about human capabilities. Weapons that could crack planets, ships that could travel faster than light itself, technologies that bent the laws of physics in impossible ways. What happens if they change their minds? His assistant asked. What happens if future generations of humans decide they want to rule instead of guard? Dae-ho looked at the communication from the human embassy. It was a simple message sent every day at the same time. We are watching. We are protecting. We will not interfere unless invited or unless the peace is threatened. Then, he said quietly, we must ensure that the peace is never threatened, and we must hope that humans continue to fear themselves more than they desire power. The galaxy settled into its new reality. The 3 council species continued their peaceful development. But now they did so under the distant protection of beings they barely understood. Trade routes were kept clear by human patrol ships that appeared when pirates attacked and vanished when the threat was ended. Exploration vessels venturing into dangerous regions found human beacons warning them of hazards. Scientific expeditions discovered that human researchers had been there first, cataloging dangers and leaving detailed warnings. Humanity became the galaxy's silent guardians. They were everywhere and nowhere, protecting without controlling, watching without interfering. And in the deep archives of every species, new myths began to form. Stories of ships that appeared when hope was lost, tales of rescues that came from empty space, legends of guardians who protected the galaxy despite themselves. The humans had returned, but they had not come home. They remained apart, carrying the burden of their own terrible effectiveness. They had learned to live with the knowledge that they were monsters who chose to be heroes. And sometimes, in the quiet moments between crises, they wondered if they had made the right choice. But every time another threat emerged from the darkness, every time the peaceful species of the galaxy faced something they could not handle alone, the answer became clear. The humans would always come when called. They would always fight when fighting was necessary, and they would always return to their distant watch when the crisis was over. They had found their place in the galaxy at last. Not as conquerors or rulers, but as the guardians in the dark, the monsters who chose to protect instead of destroy. It was a lonely existence, but it was a necessary one, and it was the price they paid for peace.